Hello y'all, welcome to the 12B Day 2 notes. We're going to start with the square root method, which we learned in 12B Day 1. So to do that, our first step is going to be to get the x squared by itself. So in this case, that means subtracting the 5 on both sides, right? When we do that, these cancel out, and we're left with x squared equals negative 5. Alright, from here, now we have the x squared by itself. We're going to get rid of the squared using a square root. Remember that the square root of a square is just itself equals, alright, we know the square root always gives us a plus minus. The square root of a negative is I. And the square root of 5 is imperfect, so we just leave it as the square root of 5. Then, easy peasy, we are all done. Now for number 2, it gets just a little bit more complicated, but not too much. So we're going to start again by getting the x squared by itself. Alright, so we'll cancel those out. We're left with negative 18, right? Equals, good, and then we bring down that 2x squared. Right, and then from here, we're going to have to divide by 2 to really get the x squared by itself. Right, and then we're left with x squared equals negative 9. Right? Alright, from here, again, we have our x squared by itself, so we get to square root. Alright, so we're left with x equals, square root always gives us plus or minus. In this case, we know the square root of a negative gives us I, and the square root of 9 gives us 3. Alright, just like that. Alright, I want you all to pause this video and go ahead and try numbers 3 and 4. Alright, and that is what we should have gotten. Hopefully you got that. If you didn't, go ahead and double check your work here. Alright, and we're going to move on to number 5 and 6, which are a little bit different than what we've done before. Alright? Alright, so the difference we notice here is that we have an x to the 4th power instead of an x squared, right? But the process is going to be similar, but not the same. Basically, what we're going to do is do the same process, but twice. And you'll see how that works in a minute. So we're going to start by getting the x to the 4th by itself. So, add 81, right? And then we're left with x to the 4th, right, equals 81. Nice and easy, right? Alright. And then we're going to do our square root again on both sides. And when we square root, we're left with x squared equals, remember square root always gives us plus or minus 9. Right, and the square root of x to the 4th is x squared, because x squared times x squared is x to the 4th, using product rule for exponents. Alright, so here's the thing. When we get this plus minus, we add another step here. And that other step is we're going to split this into 2 different problems. We're going to split this into a problem where x squared equals positive 9, and another problem where x squared equals negative 9. Alright? Because we get both that plus and minus, right? And then we're going to do the same thing, right? We don't need to solve, we're just going to square root both sides, right? On both of these equations that we have now. Square root of x squared gives us x. And then we know that the square root of 9 is plus or minus 3. And the square root of negative 9 is plus or minus 3, but the negative gives us an I, right? So these are our 2 equations, our 2 answers. Or 4 answers actually, right? We have 2 real answers and 2 imaginary answers. So another way to write this is x is equal to also, so negative 3, positive 3, negative 3i, and positive 3i, right? And then if we looked at this, we'd see that these 2 are real solutions, and these 2 are 2 imaginary solutions. Make sense? Alright, so we have 4 solutions, 2 real and 2 imaginary, and they're imaginary because they have an I involved. Alright? So we're going to go ahead and do the same steps for number 6, right? So we'll start by adding 256 on both sides. Alright? So then we're left with x to the 4th equals a nice positive 256, alright? And from here, we're just going to square root both sides, just like we did in the other problems, alright? And then what we're left with, x squared equals plus or minus, what is the square root of 256? I believe it is 16. Okay, and hopefully you remember how to do a square root on a calculator if we need to check that. We're going to split it into two problems. X squared equals positive 16, and x squared equals negative 16. And from here, we're going to do the same process again. We're going to square root again. Alright, so remember we're doing this twice now. Alright, and so then we're left with x squared equals plus or minus 4, and x squared, or sorry, just x, that's my bad there. Right, because the square root of x squared is x, equals plus or minus 4, and then that negative gives us an I. Alright, so those are our two answers. Or four answers out there, right? We have two real answers over here, and two imaginary answers, for a total of 4 different solutions, right? So it has 4 solutions, 2 real, 2 imaginary. Okay? Excellent. Now if we move down here, alright, let's try this again. So, same exact process. In fact, why don't I let you do this all yourself? You can pause the video now, and then you can check your work when you're done. Alright, and there you have it. You should be able to check your work. Go ahead and pause this video if anything looks weird to you or is confusing. And just take a minute to let it settle in. And of course, ask your teacher if you have any questions. Alright? Alright, let's move to the back side. Alright, so we start with the equation 3x squared equals, 3x squared plus 108 equals 0, right? And what we're trying to do here is solve. So in order to solve, we're going to follow the same steps as before. Subtract 108 from both sides, right? And we're left with 3x squared equals, these cancel out, right? And then negative 108. Then, in order to really get that x squared alone, we're going to divide by 3. Alright? So then we're left with x squared equals negative 36. Remember, you can always use a calculator or do long division if you're having trouble with that. And then, in order to get rid of the square, we're going to square root. Alright? And so when we square root, we're left with x equals, square root always gives us a plus or minus, square root of 36 is 6, and the square root of a negative is I. Alright? So, that gives us 2 solutions, right? 2 solutions. And what are those 2 solutions? Well, those 2 solutions are positive 6i and negative 6i, right? And since they both have an I in it, the 2 solutions both are imaginary, right? Alright, so if we go up and check who said that, we say Saul said they had 2 real solutions, so it's not Saul. Brittany says it has 1 imaginary solution, it's not Brittany. Paul says it has 2 imaginary solutions, so Paul is correct. Alright? Good deal. Alright, let's take a look at these 2 problems. So you have Miss Reyes and Miss Szymanski solve the problem for x. X to the 4th minus 81 equals 0, right? And so we see over here on the side of Miss Reyes that Miss Reyes did the same problem type that we did, right? Where she solved for the 4th root, or 4th power, then square rooted, right? Split it into 2 and then square root it again, right? Whereas Miss Szymanski did it a different way. She did a 4th root, right? And if we look at this, we can look and see that Miss Szymanski only got 1 answer, whereas Miss Reyes got 4 different answers, right? And so what did Mrs. Szymanski miss, right? Well, first of all, she did not include the plus minus, right? When she did a root. Right? And that's important because, right, we know that -2 times -2 times -2 times -2 equals a positive 16, just as much as a positive 2 times a positive 2 times a positive 2 times a positive 2 equals 16, right? So either could be accurate. And then, on the other hand, she also forgot the imaginaries, right? Imaginary numbers. Or imaginary solutions, let's say. Right? And how did she forget those? Well, she forgot them because right here, when you do a square root, leads to plus minus, and she should have done 2 square roots. Right? Alright. So, another way to answer this is, of course, just to do the problem yourself. So if you did the problem yourself, we have enough experience to do this, right? To just write it in our own words, right? So x to the 4th minus 81 equals 0. You add 81 on both sides, right? We've done this before now. Should be old hat, alright? Oh, and y'all probably can't see that. There we go. Alright. Alright, and then from here, of course, we're going to square root, right? And we'll get x squared equals plus or minus 9 here, right? Split that into 2 equations. Just like Miss Reyes did, right? Miss Reyes has been right the whole time. Excellent. And then from here, again, we'll just square root to get rid of that. Squared, right? Because we know what happens with the square root. We do not know what happens with the 4th root, right? But we can always predict this, and we want to go with what we know. Okay. So from here, we get x equals plus or minus 3, and x equals plus or minus 3i, which would say that Miss Reyes is correct. Right? So in your final answer, you want to say why these 2 things, right? So why Mrs. Szymanski is wrong, and who's correct. So Miss Reyes, right? Reyes is correct. Alright? So your final answer should include all of these statements. Make sense? Okay, and then we're done for the day. So go ahead and make sure you check out the 12B practice just to make sure these are solidified in your brain. And I will see you later. Alright, have a good one.